Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, November 1st, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. How the Frack We Got Here. I'm host the most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast, which means we do try to find the sources for the most reputable places with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News or whatever left or right part of the internet that you get your news from. Aside from that, guys, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, maybe things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So while you're enjoying your half-off Halloween candy, guys, hopefully you did have a wonderful, happy Halloween as we now move on to that wonderful Thanksgiving anthem that we can't play because Shirley Caesar cares more about money than she cares about God. That being said, guys, speaking of people who care about God but apparently do not care about politics, America's creepiest Christian, America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, is the first to drop, and all I can sit there and say is, I told you so.
After much prayer and deliberation, I have decided to suspend my campaign for president effective today.
Former Vice President Mike Pence has left the race for president in what many are calling a surprise announcement. Hey, I'm Libby Cathy, a campaign embed with ABC News, and I've been following Pence around for the past 5 months. And I was there this weekend at the Republican Jewish Coalition in Las Vegas when he said this.
Now, to the American people, I say this is not my time, but it's still your time.
The surprise across the ballroom was audible. Some people stood up and started applauding Pence, while others were gasping at the news. And in the press pen, reporters were feverishly typing to get the breaking news out.
Now, I'm leaving this campaign, but let me promise you, I will never leave the fight for conservative values, and I will never stop fighting to elect principled Republican leaders to every office in the land.
Now, there were signs a Pence exit could be imminent. Over the summer, he made several swings through Iowa and New Hampshire, but the former vice president really struggled to turn crowds out for him. He also struggled to raise money, just having reported over $600,000 in debt and having donated $150,000 of his own personal funds to his own campaign. And he hadn't yet qualified for the next Republican primary debate in Miami. As far as an endorsement goes, Pence didn't say anything there, but seemed to leave the door open in the future.
So I urge all my fellow Republicans here, give our country a Republican standard bearer that will, as Lincoln said, appeal to the better angels of our nature. And not only lead us to victory, but lead our nation with civility back to the time-honored principles that have always made America strong and prosperous and free.
With Pence out, there are still 9 Republicans vying to be the GOP presidential nominee.
Yep, we still going to continue that race. America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, suspending his campaign. I know for a lot of people are wondering, suspend. Well, basically due to campaign rules, if you suspend a campaign, any funds that you've collected during your campaign run, you don't have to get back. They remain on hold to the campaign rules. That's why you see a lot of people when they say they're suspending their campaign, they're really saying, I want another shot at this, but I want to sell this money that I don't want to give back because it's hard to get back money after you've raised it, only turn and give it back and then try to get it back. But ultimately, Mike Pence was, unfortunately, America's creepiest Christian. There was nothing about this man that outside of being Donald Trump's vice president and full-time adult daycare provider for Trump for the last 4 years when Trump was president. The man has nothing more to offer. He has nothing to stand on. He keeps on saying he stands on his Christian values, had nothing more to produce, still repeat the same old GOP lines, and at the same time, as we talked about it, might be a little too old because ageism is playing a role and who actually runs for the highest office in the land. And again, nobody like Mike Pence. But don't feel bad. Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, they're all about to fall. I mean, this is what I'm getting at, guys. As we're getting to the third Republican primary debate, or as I like to call it, shit show number 3, that's going to happen in Miami, it's going to be the same old thing. And I keep telling people, this is why Trump's not doing anything. Trump, for the first time in his life, may have actually made the smartest decision that he could make, which is not attending these debates. Why? He's leading the polls. Now, keep in mind, we've went through 2 of these Republican debates, and the poll numbers haven't changed. How is a person that is facing multiple indictments, multiple court cases, possible jail time, and he is still the leading person to get the nomination? And I've said it best. I don't see Nikki Haley doing it because, again, this is the party of old white men. If you're not one of them and rich, or you're not one of them and rich and actually paying one of them, you're not one of them. I don't see Nikki Haley being I don't see Nikki Haley getting the nomination because, again, and this is not sexist, she's a woman in a party that does not see them for anything more valuable than a mouthpiece. Don't believe me? Look at Sarah Palin. At the same time, Tim Scott won't get it. He is a black man trying to really win the party of old white men. Yet he doesn't see it. Vivek Ramaswamy, same way. And I can keep going down the line because we still have 9 other people outside of Pence who has suspended his campaign, is still trying to get the presidency, trying to get the presidential nomination. Whereas Donald Trump is sitting pretty and going, yeah, I'll skip this debate because why do I need to? People are still giving me money to pay for my legal battles. I'm still leading in the polls. I just make a little trip here and there, let people know that I'm alive. This is a blah, 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 witch hunt, blah, blah, blah. They're out to get me, blah, blah, blah. I won the election fair and square. You know, the greatest hits. As long as Trump does that and his idiots buy in, and yes, they are idiots, because at this point, I'm sorry, we need to stop being nice about you Trump supporters. You're idiots. Unless you are, and I said before, the only 2 people that have actually profited in a Trump era was corporations and rich people. Those are the only 2 people that'll ever sit there and say that they've benefited from Trump. Everyone else that believes that or asks this question, well, what did Trump do to you? Oh, he did quite a lot to the American people. And much like his companies, he ran into the ground, except you actually can't file America under Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So, again, we will watch this shit show as it rolls on and see who else is going to drop. My money at this point is either going to be on Nikki Haley or Tim Scott, one of the 2. Or Vivek. Vivek might actually do it. But I hate to say it, guys, it's almost on that same level of entertainment as WWE. But stay tuned. Moving right along, guys, we want to cover this as well because the UAW has the victory. And I keep telling you guys, when it comes to unions, standing in solidarity gets you the win. Don't believe me? Ask the big 3.
Now to good news for the nation's auto industry. General Motors has now reached a tentative deal with the United Auto Workers, the last of Detroit's big 3 to do so. So this ends an unprecedented strike, clearing the way for the return of nearly 50,000 workers after more than 6 weeks of picketing and a lot of pressure. So what does this mean for you? Let's welcome in NBC's new senior business correspondent, Christine Robins. First of all, we'd like to welcome you to the table.
Christine.
We're so happy to have you here. All right, so let's talk about this deal. What's in the fine print?
So look, they're going to get the pay raises that they wanted, and they're going to get a cost of living adjustment, something that they had to give up way back in the great financial crisis. Remember when there were the bailouts of the automakers? These auto workers feel like they've spent the last decade with really stagnant wages and not profiting the way the big companies have. And so now they have gotten these pay increases, significant pay increases, really record pay raises for these workers, cost of living increase. Even retirees will have 5 different 500 payments each to compensate them as well to, for a decade of pretty much stagnant wages. So it basically turns out to be about a 25% pay increase over 4.5 years. This is a significant victory for labor.
Labor wins. What was the cost to the auto companies here?
They'll have to eat this. Now, remember, GM made something like gross profit of $23 billion last year. So this will cost them more. And eventually you could see this increase go into the cost of a car, but then that makes them a little less competitive. So we'll see big profits for these automakers over the past years, and these workers wanted a piece of that.
Another issue while we have you here, we've got this, some are calling it Farmageddon,
right?
Pharmacists.
Okay, I'm just going to cut that off because it's going to go into something else that I'm going to talk about very quickly. But yeah, again, guys, I keep saying this. I said it, and again, it's like, how many more times are y'all? It's like, well, let me be honest. Let's be honest. It shouldn't be surprising. The big three, GM, Stellantis, and Ford, were all going to fall because you are not going to outdo your labor unions. You're not. There's a reason why we keep saying that you should be pro-union, that you should join a union if it's in your area. That again, never negotiate with the company by yourself, because there is strength in numbers. And again, we have seen that, because now the UAW has gotten the pay raises that they want for those people. Like I said, 25% of the next 4 years, 11% already goes into effect. And then cost of living adjustments. You've heard us talk about this in this podcast. When it comes to cost of living, everybody wants to work, but nobody wants to kill themselves for peanuts. And we kept on saying the problem with America right now is that a lot of jobs, they simply do not want to pay more. Everything has went up but your paycheck. It's only now, post-pandemic, do we now see that people are just starting to go, it's not worth it. It's not worth killing myself over for the same pay when everything goes up but my income. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is amazing that the CEOs in this country it takes more than 500 employees salary to equal up to one CEO. It's actually a lot more than that now. But the point I'm making is when a CEO comes to a pay raise or makes a lot of money, nobody bats an eye. But when the workers of the same set company say, hey, we can get a pay raise, oh, well, who's going to pay for it? It's going to increase the cost of goods. We can't hire anybody. All the boogeyman counterpoints that are BS. Because, again, everything else still went up. Workers' wages are still stagnant. However, now in the case of the UAW, workers have gotten their cost of living. They've gotten their increases back. Protect workers' rights when they're doing strikes, and again, gotten back their reinstatement retirement fees for a number of union workers. Again, these are the same These are the same union workers that in 2007, 2008 gave up their cost of living adjustments, because everybody remembers during 07, 08 when the big three went to Congress and said, "Hey, we need to get bailed out, or if we don't get bailed out, we're going to, it's going to hurt a lot of people in the long run." And so, of course, Congress bailed them out. I still believe that the big auto workers go to Congress for a bailout. Every American's due a new car. That's just my thinking on it, but I digress. The reason why I say that is because now the auto workers have finally gotten what they wanted, depending if they all agreed to the deal. And again, we have seen what happens consistently throughout this year. We've seen, like I said before, we can go down this line. We've seen John Deere, we've seen teachers, we've seen nurses, we've seen hospital workers, especially Kaiser Permanente. We have seen unions, also city maintenance workers, like those in Los Angeles and those in the hotel industry. We have seen them all do strikes, and every one of those strikes has always led to what exactly those people wanted: increases in pay, cost of life benefits, more healthcare coverage. Oh, and let's not forget UPS, one of the biggest logistical companies out there. They almost had a riot because all the drivers wanted was air-conditioned vehicles, because they're driving around box trucks right now that don't have heating or cooling, but tell them to keep the doors open and also take water with you. So again, I am not surprised that anytime there's a strike, that the corporations never win. And now those corporations, they're crying about, oh, we lost so much money. Well, why didn't you just do what you should have done the first time and give the people what they wanted? Because in the end, you still gave the people what they wanted. But now you hit such a loss. And again, that goes from the manufacturers to dealerships and whatnot. But again, it is amazing to me that these same companies who go against unions could literally solve their own problems. But the problem they have is that they have to outdo their greed first. So again, congratulations to the UAW. But as one door closes, another one opens. And I keep telling you guys, for those in the pharmacy area, that you do get your prescriptions, you might want to make sure you get your 90-day supply because another strike may be coming.
More pharmacy workers, they're walking off the job this week, and organizers tell NBC News they're protesting unsafe working conditions.
Yeah, they say the walkout started yesterday. They're expected to continue until tomorrow. They are affecting some of the largest pharmacy chains in the country, including CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid. NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo has more on the impact.
Pharmacy workers fed up are walking off the job again. But protest organizers say the issue is not pay. It's about the growing workload and staffing concerns.
The main job of pharmacists has always been to accurately check prescriptions. And now that's almost an afterthought.
More than just doling out medications, protest organizers say workers are being asked to administer a growing number of vaccines, deal with insurance companies, and spend a lot of time fielding phone calls. Pharmacist Shane Jerominski worked at large pharmacy chains before moving to an independent drugstore.
If you asked every pharmacist in America if they would rather a $5 an hour raise for themselves or they would rather an extra technician working in their store, they would all opt almost unanimously to have another technician.
Some customers taking their business to smaller independent pharmacies.
What did you experience at the large pharmacies that sort of pushed you over the edge and made you say no more?
Wait time, attitude of the staff, the whole playing with the prescription.
Nick Tini owns the independent Sanatoga pharmacy in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. He says they're getting daily calls from large chain customers asking to transfer prescriptions to them.
Speak to the pharmacy.
What do they tell you about the reason that they made that switch?
The obvious reasons, just customer service, like I guess frustration of the employees there, the long waits.
In many cities, options are becoming more limited. Large retailers have announced they're closing hundreds of locations. And in rural areas, the number of retail pharmacies has decreased from 2003 to 2021 by more than 14%. Researchers at the Center for Rural Health Policy Analysis say one reason is large chain store pharmacies often drive smaller independent drugstores out of business. And when the box stores shut down,
not the community pharmacy at all because of that phenomenon.
All contributing to growing pharmacy deserts, usually defined as areas where people live a mile or more from a pharmacy. CVS issued a statement saying, in part, we're focused on developing a sustainable, scalable action plan to support both our pharmacists and our customers. Rite Aid statement saying, in part, we remain committed to providing safe, productive, and supportive work environments to all our associates, including our dedicated pharmacists. A Walgreens spokesperson saying they recognize the hard work of staff and they're taking steps to, quote, ensure that our teams can concentrate on providing optimal patient care. For now, both pharmacy workers and patients
call a customer complaint, and what do? Nothing.
Continue to express frustration.
All right, Stephen Romo joins us right now. Stephen, I know that you also mentioned pharmacy deserts are something people are concerned about. How does that affect patients?
Yeah, they really do affect patients with these pharmacy closures. The University of Southern California actually says that Black and Latino communities are disproportionately affected by these pharmacy deserts, making it much more difficult for them to get their prescription medications. And we mentioned when these pharmacies, these standalone pharmacies close down in different communities, they're not only losing the pharmacy, there's also medical questions that the pharmacists sometimes answer about over-the-counter medications. And they also sell things like groceries. So it can cause a big problem for the communities where these shutdowns happen in.
And again, I mean, we're right back to another one. Pharmacists. Now, again, if you've ever been to a pharmacist, they first and foremost, they got it rough. I mean, forget the fact that you have to make sure the prescriptions are correct because they have a very tentative, serious, and highly restrictive job because you don't want to get, first and foremost, you don't want to get the wrong medicine. You don't want to get the wrong dosage. And you definitely don't want to get it wrong because that could lead to injury or at worst death for anybody that might get the wrong dosage, wrong type, things of that nature. So yes, pharmacists have to take their time. Not knocking them for that. But as they said in the article, major brands like Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid basically came in and took over the mom and pop stores or pushed them out. So now, if all you had, like for example, if you had 4 pharmacy stores that you can go to, I guarantee 2 of them are either CVS or Walgreens or another big box store. But you'll very rarely find an independent store unless it's in a small town. Why am I saying this? Because the aggressive expansion of big box stores led to the killing of small business areas. That's what they said. That's what I said in the article, or in the video, that small businesses are welcome because, well, if you've ever been to a CVS or Walgreens or Rite Aid, the people behind the pharmacy counter, tad bit stressed. But I can understand that. They might be short shipped. You might have to be there a lot longer or be there on days or your off days are cut off. At the same time, like I said, you ever seen them when they have to talk to the insurance people? Not fun. I've actually seen that firsthand. It is not fun when they have to talk to the insurance people. Also, at the same time, you have to give vaccines. Something a pharmacist says pharmacy's never done before. It doesn't mean the pharmacy technicians can't do it, but more and more is being asked of them. So eventually, something's got to give. Now, of course, that's just one pharmacist. That's one pharmacy tech saying pay isn't the problem. Okay, but staffing is. You don't have enough staff. Again, the people that are there are being overworked. This is all sounding a little bit too familiar, isn't it? And of course, the corporations are all saying the same thing. Well, we're looking into ways to help our staff, our associates, because they do such great jobs. Yeah, there's only 2 things you could fix there: hire more people or change the pay. Because as I said it before, guys, everybody wants to work. Nobody wants to kill themselves for peanuts. Imagine if you pay people a living wage. Certain businesses have figured this out. If you pay them a livable wage, you can't get enough. You will run out of application papers because everybody wants to work there. But if your pay is crappy, you're going to have plenty of open positions, and you shouldn't be surprised about that, really and truly. But we'll follow it as it goes along because, like I said before, it was hot labor summer. It's about to turn into the coldest winter. But that being said, I do want to move over to Congress because, number one, Marjorie Taylor Greene. How this pendejo is still in office, getting paid for doing nothing, amazes me. Even more so, that this brings up a point that I want to talk about with the Israel-Hamas war, that she put out a measure to censor a fellow politician because she didn't support Israel. You can't make this up.
Purpose is that gentlewoman seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I seek recognition to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. A resolution censuring Representative Rashida Tlaib for anti-Semitic activity, sympathizing with terrorist organizations, and leading an insurrection at the United States Capitol complex. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Representative Rashida Tlaib be censured. Representative Rashida Tlaib forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and Representative Rashida Tlaib be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker.
Okay, so what that basically means is that person cannot speak during a congressional session if it was passed. Here's the crazy part. That pendejo tried to say that Rashida Tlaib, for anti-Semitic activity, she simply supported Palestine. That's it. That was her whole thing. She was supporting, considering the fact that Rashida Tlaib is Palestinian. She is the only Palestinian American in Congress. So of course she said, quote unquote, I wish all the Palestinian people would see this. I wish they could see that not all of America wants them to die, that they're not disposable, they did not ask me born occupation, the dehumanization has chipped at my soul. Now, I have told you guys beforehand, do your research, because I certainly did mine with Israel and Palestinians and Hamas. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. Israel is looking real tyrannish right now, tyrannical, if you will, because consider the fact they occupy most of that area except for 3 main pockets that are occupied by Palestinians. Israel is doing the bombing and blaming Hamas, even though they are, again, acting real dictatorship. And even more so, and I got to point this out, supporting Palestine is not anti-Semitic, because anti-Semitic seems to be the golden buzzword nowadays, just because of idiots wanting to sit there and for lack of a better word, monetize it. And that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to do. She tried to sit there and say, well, she supports Palestine, she's anti-Semitic. No, she's supporting a group of people who are being oppressed, and the U.S. is funding them. But alas, I digress, because there's going to be people out there saying, if you're not supporting Israel, I never have. Because again, I've never understood it outside of the fact that it was explained to me that the only reason that the U.S. supports Israel is because of its military standpoint. That's it. But ever since the U.S.'s incursion in the Middle East, there's always been war. And we all know that war is the U.S.'s number one area of profit. And trust me, the chicken hawks, especially the GOP side, would love another war for them and the military-industrial complex. Trust me, they would love that. But at the same time, guys, again, supporting Palestine does not make you anti-Semitic, because last time I checked, they're not the one bombing hospitals. But moving right along, guys, again, with the war, this is a problem. And I keep on saying this, and this is the reason why I keep on saying that we as a people need to be aware. The GOP is considering a $14.3 billion Israel aid bill. Keep in mind what I just said. I just got to talking about the Israel-Hamas war that is currently going on. The GOP, the chicken hawks, of course, and not just them, because I talked about Biden also on this. Biden wants to send a package to Israel and Ukraine, so we're really fighting the war on 2 different fronts. But $14.3 billion. That, of course, is going to not go through with the Senate, but they want to set up $14.3 billion. Here's the crazy part where they got that number. That $14.3 billion was supposed to be going to the IRS as a part of the Inflation Reduction Act to actually ramp up IRS, so to actually allow the IRS to hire more staff and things of that nature, because we always talk about how the IRS is backed up, especially around refund time. That $14.3 billion would have went to them to actually alleviate that. And now those very same Republicans are saying, hey, we want to give this to Israel. And again, that is beyond crazy to me. Not the fact of the number, but how the fact of the matter is that that number came up to go to a foreign country. And yet we don't have, and yet we can't get pay increases. We can't get student loans covered. We can't get any financial breather. But Israel can get $14.3 billion like it's been the side chick for 30 years and kept their mouth shut. Make it make sense, because it doesn't. I still ask to this day, how is it that we are still in debt and yet we are still giving money to foreign entities? That they get money and resources faster than the American people. And I say this not only to Democrats, but also Republicans. I say to them, it's like, how do you justify that to the American people? I gotta ask that question. Because your American people right now are trying to make ends meet, and you're just giving billions to another country that you're not going to see back. But you want our votes come next year, and then take the next 2 years after the midterms. You want our votes, but you want us to trust you because you guys are making the decision to send that money out. All I can say is make it make sense. Otherwise, it's going to be a nice little hard election for a lot of these individuals out here. Because again, it doesn't make any sense that Americans have to worry about making ends meet while Israel gets $14 billion if it was approved by the Senate. But again, it may get shot down. We'll follow that as it goes along. Another thing that Biden is trying to do is that they're revamping their debt forgiveness plan. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this. Since initially Biden wanted to wipe out $20,000. Of course, that went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said Biden doesn't have that ability. So Biden said, cool, let me go back and let me revamp the IDR income repayment plans and the fact that the Department of Education is sorely behind because a lot of people may have qualified to have their debt, have their student loans wiped out. But again, paperwork. But here's his next plan that he wants to do. And you know what? Let's start with this. So here's the proposal that Biden wants to do. He wants to target 4 categories of borrowers: those with federal student loan balances that exceed the original borrowed amount, those with loans that have entered into repayment 25 years ago or more, those with loans for career training programs that led to unreasonable debt loads or provided insufficient earnings, and those who are eligible for forgiveness under other repayment plans but not have applied for it. Y'all, at this point, why in the world have we not wiped out student loan debt? Think about that. Those areas right there, they almost sound exactly right. Sound exactly right? For federal student loan balances that exceed the original borrowed amount, that's almost everybody. Almost anybody who's ever had a student loan and have been in college for longer than 2 years, you have exceeded your original borrow amount. By interest alone. Again, those loans have entered into repayment 25 years ago or more would be a good number of people. Those with loans for career training programs that led to unreasonable debt loads or provided insufficient earnings, which means that, again, either you have a lot of debt or the job that you picked did not meet the earning potential of said degree. I think that speaks for a lot of us. And those who are eligible for forgiveness under other repayment plans but have not applied for it. At this point, how is it that between the Secretary of Education and the current President Biden having just sat there and said, you know what we need to do? We just need to go ahead and wipe out student loan debt. Because again, you have to sit there and you're sitting there and you're trying to tell us, oh, well, this can get done. At this point, wipe out the entire student loan debt because your debt proposal plan is pretty much doing that. But I guess you have to reword it because, lawyers. But I digress as we move right along. Tim Scott has picked out a different group of people to talk to that are not all white. Believe it or not, Tim Scott actually went to Chicago. Remember when I sat there and said a little bit earlier in this podcast that after America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, has suspended his campaign, that we're going to find out who's going to drop out from the race next? It's going to be Tim Scott. Tim Scott was invited to Chicago by a preacher to basically explain himself to others. Keep in mind, Tim Scott's usual group is, white folks. He doesn't really speak to a lot of black people. But in this case, he actually went to Chicago, specifically to a church he was invited to, New Beginnings Church. I'm sorry, that's the word I was looking for. New Beginnings Church is where he was invited to the south side of Chicago. And again, judging by his, there was mixed reviews about when he spoke to him. Some believe that he wasn't authentic. Some believe that he was just putting on a show. Some really believe what this man was talking about. And again, I am surprised about the fact that he still spoke to black people. Keep in mind, I want to remind people about this every chance I get. Tim Scott is solely responsible for killing the George Floyd police reform bill, the bill that would have made chokeholds illegal, that would have taken away no-knock warrants, that would have addressed police reform in ways of compensation to the victims. He single-handedly killed that bill when he was tasked with work with Cory Booker on it from Democrats. He also helped kill the Voting Rights Act, which honestly, if that went in place, would make voting in America way freaking easier. He had a hand in killing that too. And at the same time, the same individual's going to come down there, and I know what it is. I call it what it is. What Tim Scott was doing, he's pandering. He's pandering. Oh, I didn't have a father in the household. My mom all raised me, but I did this and I did this on my own. I didn't have a victim mentality. I didn't feel like I could blame everybody for my actions. I took personal accountability for myself. He was literally doing the GOP hits. But the problem is the GOP hits, they only hit with certain white folks. You can't tell that same old song and dance to black people and expect us to vibe with you, because we'll look at you like an Uncle Tom. We'll look at you as somebody who isn't in the struggle with us. Tim Scott found out the hard way in Chicago. And again, all I can sit there and say is he's going to need the black votes at this point. But the problem is, it's the GOP. The GOP doesn't love anybody but old rich white men. They have already shown how much they don't like minorities and women and those the LGBTQ plus variety. So to Tim Scott, good luck. A little bit too late, but good luck. Moving right along, guys, we covered this story last week, and I'm so glad it's getting traction because, again, a mother that lost her child, only to find out the police knew the entire time what happened to her child. Even more so, not a lot happened to the officers that were involved.
ABC News exclusive. A mother in Mississippi searching for her missing son, only to learn that he had been struck and killed by a police car, and no one had told her for nearly 6 months. Blaine Alexander reports on what she's demanding.
The last time Betterstein Wade saw her son Dexter, the two had an argument and he left the house. But 3 days later, when her 37-year-old still hadn't come home, she knew something was wrong.
He's never disappeared like that.
He never disappeared like that. He never.
Within 2 weeks, she filed a police report. For months, her calls to police got the same response: no update.
Help me understand what that time was like for you.
That time was horrible. You would lay in your bed. You would think he might have been out there suffering. Somebody might have had him, tortured him. You just want that call to say, Mom, I'm all right. I'm all right. All you want to do is see your child.
Then in August, nearly 6 months after Dexter went missing, an investigator finally told her Dexter had been hit and killed by an off-duty Jackson police officer while crossing a highway. It had happened less than an hour after he left home that day in March. Then another bombshell. Dexter had already been buried in an unmarked grave behind the county jail. The only sign, a pole with the number 672.
Dexter, I tried to find you and I couldn't. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry you're here.
You saw buzzards circling. And you're talking about a frightening thought. Did they even put him in a wood box? Or did they just put him in a body bag and drop him in the ground?
Jackson police have not responded to NBC's request for comment. According to the coroner's office, an investigator identified Dexter and shared contact information for his mother with police. But she says she never received a call. After NBC News broke this story last week, Jackson's mayor said this:
that at no point have we identified or did any investigation reveal that there was any police misconduct in this process and that there was any malicious intent.
Do you believe that?
No.
Attorney Ben Crump says they're asking for the DOJ to open a civil rights investigation. They also plan to exhume the body and perform a private autopsy before giving Dexter a proper burial.
And lay some flowers there, and just to know he's in a safe place.
Blaine Alexander, NBC News.
What's crazy is, and I said this when we talked about, I said this when the story first broke out and we reported it. You're going to stand and tell me with police, with all the technology at your fingertips, the fact that if, and I'm just going to throw this out there, if a black person kills a number of people on a mass murdering spree, you've already got that man's backstory before the coffee gets cold. But you're going to stand and tell me that an off-duty officer kills a mother's son. The son is buried at the jail. The coroner identifies said person. And with all that being said, you're telling me that no one was able to reach out to his mother to let him know what happened? That 6 months later she finds out he died? But I'm supposed to take off the fact of the mayor's office saying, oh, we did an investigation and no wrongdoing was found. Yeah, wrongdoing. No one can explain why it took nearly half a year for that mother to get that heart-wrenching news about her son. At the same time, what about the officer that actually struck him? Was he drug tested? Was he examined? Was he all these things? Because trust me, if a person of color hits somebody on the road, that's the first thing they're doing. Drawing blood, urine test, checking his blood out, checking their blood alcohol level, checking all these things. Because guess what? Whenever it comes to law enforcement, I don't know why. And yes, I have a thing against law enforcement. You ain't figured that out yet. But here's the thing I always have against law enforcement. Why is it that every one of their actions can be explained? That's the thing I don't understand. Why is it that anytime law enforcement, the moment accountability comes up with law enforcement has an explanation? That's what I want to know. They are more, this is the reason why I keep on saying, this is what I say when it comes to law enforcement, they have better protection than the citizens they claim to serve and protect. Because there is no way on God's green earth an officer can do a hit and run that the victim can be buried and that the mother is identified for several months, and yet you cannot say that you found any wrongdoing. It makes no sense. It smells like a cover-up. And if it smells like a cover-up, then everybody, including the mayor's office, needs to be held accountable. Because again, to sit there and say otherwise makes no sense at all. But again, we shall see as that story develops. Moving right along, guys. This is more comical than anything else, but I had to figure I'd just share this a little bit with you. Because Donald Trump right now is in Manhattan for his silver fraud case, right? Well, not only is he going to be testifying, Donald Trump Jr. is supposed to be testifying. Eric Trump, which means both his sons, and his daughter, which he said he would, well, you know what he would say would do. It's creepy as hell. I don't want to repeat it. But anyway, his daughter Ivanka will all be testifying in this trial. Keep in mind, this is the same trial where the DA has pulled up and said Trump's holdings that he had in New York were overinflated to show that his value or his portfolio was more than what he had. Of course, his children were executive vice presidents at a Trump organization, the same Trump organization that the CEO, the COO, not too long ago, just pled guilty to fraud and served jail time. I keep saying this. I'm not sure which case is going to take him out, but I'm fairly certain it's got to be one of them. And I think between this one and his handling of secret documents and the fact that he may have actually compromised national security with unauthorized personnel, might do him in. I'm not sure, but my money right now is on fraud. But it's amazing that his entire family is going to be testifying, and only to be a fly on the wall when it happens. Oh, and Donald Trump also violated his second gag order, which again we shouldn't be surprised about, because Donald Trump again is every white napkin American's dream to say anything they want to do without zero consequence, and they love that stuff. It is basically reality TV on tap. But I digress on that. But we do want to follow these cases because these cases are federal, which means that if old Dorito is actually found guilty, he can no longer run for president because he can't be a felon and run for the presidency, at least until the rules get changed. But we shall see. Move right along, guys. Again, I talked about cases where Biden should really eliminate student loan debt, only because there are some companies out there, some for-profit colleges out there that really screwed us over. Well, you found another one. Grand Canyon University fined nearly $38 million for misrepresenting costs of doctoral programs. I cannot stress this enough that these for-profit colleges and private schools have been getting over on people. So again, I like the fact that yes, he's fighting them, but even more so, wipe out the debt. That's the big thing I keep finding myself repeating whenever it comes to student loans. The only area to where you will be able to really make a difference here is to honestly wipe out student loan debt. I cannot stress this enough. Debt is accrued on each of our portfolios. Debt to income ratio. That much debt, especially if you're a doctor or if you're in the or a physician or nurse, we're not even going to talk about how big your student loans are. But the point I'm getting at is that type of debt on your credit report can keep you from getting a house, from getting a car, and from getting a job, because jobs check credit reports too. So imagine, simple fact of the matter, if everybody's debt and if everybody's student loan debt was wiped out. I'm telling you, instant economy turnaround booster. But I digress. Moving right along, guys, we're going to our feel-good segment because usually how the Frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make you use your faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. Tomorrow is Friday, which is Thursday. We will leave you guys out some good vibrations. Hopefully I found just that as we are witnessing history of the first African-American homecoming queen in South Carolina. Check it out.
The most important part of me winning Homecoming Queen is that nobody questioned my win. And it felt amazing to hear younger children, older people giving me congratulations, and they made me feel like I belonged. I am the first to have won. However, there have been other Black girls who have been a part of the court, but I am lucky enough to say that I have been the first African American to win the title of Homecoming Queen. My parents, they were so overjoyed. They were so happy. My mom typically doesn't cry, but you can see the tears forming out of her eyes when I won. Being the first African American homecoming queen means that children get to look at me and see themselves in me. It's so important that they see that representation and know that anything is attainable for them. To my younger self, I would tell her that your Blackness is your pride. I would want myself to feel confident in anything I do and anybody else to know that regardless of your race, it's the content of your character that matters, and how you show up is everything to you.
And she's 100% right. We're back. Quiet, you. She's 100% right about that. Representation matters. And like I said, that school's 155-year history. She is the first homecoming queen. So definitely congrats to her. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. So I do thank you all guys for watching, for liking, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out Blurred Station. What is Blurred Station, you may ask? Blurred Station is part of an initiative to basically give us Black Hollywood. If you don't know, this is actually the site here, blurredstation.com, as you can see right there. Do me a favor, because again, this is content for blurs. Movies, music, anime, drawings, shows like Issue 1, which will be coming out very soon. This is actually the place to be for blurs, for people of color, because again, we've seen what happens with Netflix, with Amazon, and Hulu. The content doesn't stay there, prices are going up, and honestly, at this point, it is $10. Yes, if you hit that join now button, it is $10. And as you can see here, guys, if you just do me a favor, if you will do me a simple favor, is that when you do go here, definitely go to Blurred's Eye View, click on the Affinity membership. And then once you do that, guys, under the Affinity Influence Partner, just find me, Black Spartan, if you be so nice, and subscribe. And again, look, it's $10.99 a month. $10.99 a month to basically be able to join this. Now, you're probably wondering what Affinity membership is. Well, Affinity membership means is just basically, guys, that eventually it's a 36-month membership. Now, at 36 months, here's the fun part. After 36 months of paying $10.99 per month, you will actually be able to select a choice reward. One of those rewards being that you can actually own a piece of Blurred Station. Think about that. You ever want to own a piece of Netflix, own a piece of Hulu, Amazon Prime, every one of those streaming services out there? Well, with Blurred Station, you can definitely do that. But definitely, guys, when you do that, definitely select Blurred's Eye View, Affinity membership, select me, Black Spartan, under there, and I'd certainly appreciate it. But again, It's all about representation mattering, and Blurred Station is definitely it. Also, shout out to my boy Vaughn at BigBZA and all social media. Definitely check out his YouTube page, as usually has beats for sale. If you want a beat to be made by him or have an idea you want to see if you can make it to fruition, that is the man to see. BigBZA on all social media. As for myself, guys, you can find me BlackFox447 on the socials. I usually do reviews on just about everything. I still do my gym stuff thing. And again, just trying to, because life be life, and life right now is Mike Tyson before the cocaine. Because he be working, but we be working harder. That being said, guys, the link at the bottom to make this a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, take the link to the YouTube and Facebook groups for all my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, of course, off this podcast. Definitely like, share, subscribe. Don't just like it and keep moving on, guys. I mean, really share it. Share the fact that this show is really about information. Share the fact that I want to continue the conversation. Share the fact that the only way we can make this change is within ourselves, and we have to do that from the neighborhood before we can get to the White House and vice versa. That is all I am freaking saying, and hoping that you'll join in my mission with me. But as we wrap this up, guys, again, I cannot stress this out enough, especially when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war. Do the research. I mean, look at the history. Because I said it before, free Palestine. Because Israel right now is looking real dictatorish to me right now. But history will show that, again, somebody's wrong. And unfortunately, to me, the U.S. is back in the wrong course. But again, I highly encourage everybody, do your research. Don't just take my word for it. Please do the research. Get informed. That's the whole point out of all of this. Also in the comment section, guys, I do want to keep the conversation going. So again, the only rule I have about the conversation feels like, hey, it's a point of discussion. It is completely okay to agree to disagree, and let the facts speak for themselves. That's all I'm saying. But the last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, guys, all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past and make a decision now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing the same old? Why are we electing different politicians in Congress, but still the same old game? And most importantly, how the Frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll all get through this. Peace.